Hi, everybody, and I'm back. This is week 2 of Ordinary People. And if I haven't seen you before, my name is Brenda Mayer. I am a layperson in the Methodist Church. Just so you know where I'm coming from, not that it's got a huge impact on what I'm saying, I don't think. And we are just working our way through. Last week was Adam and Eve and how they are just like us. And this week, Cain and Abel. You knew it was coming. So I am using, again, an NIV. So if you want to follow along in your own Bible and the words are a little different, it might be because you have a different version. But the story's the same. And this starts in chapter 4 of Genesis. And we're just going to read the first 10 verses. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked in the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel brought an offering, the portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor upon Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. And the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." And when they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," Cain replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" And that's where we're going to end. And I'm sure that we've all heard that phrase, "Am I my brother's keeper?" over and over in our life. Cain and Abel are a perfect example of what is known as sibling rivalry. It started then, it hasn't stopped. Now, if you want kind of a definition of it, it's defined as the jealousy, competition, and fighting between brothers and sisters. And it usually starts right after the birth of the second child. Imagine that. And it usually continues throughout childhood. And that's the definition according to Michigan Medicine. And sibling rivalry can have some positive aspects to it. If it's not to the extreme, it helps nurture their children's emotional intelligence. It boosts their social skills. And the children learn the complex lessons in communication, problem solving, impulse control, and conflict resolution. So when your kids are fighting, this is what they're working out: how to interact with the world around them, how to negotiate. "I want that." "No, it's not your turn. I had it first." All those are practice negotiations so that they can find out when they're grown up. Most people learn when they grow up. You don't reach out and just grab things off of people. It's not considered acceptable behavior. It's not when you're 4, and it's not when you're 44. But that's how children learn. We know that children learn through play. However, we have Cain and Abel. Now they're an interesting couple. had actually not remembered until I was studying more of this week that Cain is actually the older sibling. I guess it just didn't really make that much difference at first to me. But when I think about it, and when you think about this story, Cain's an only child, and along comes Abel, the new brother. Now, depending on how old Cain was when Abel was born, and he probably was at least a couple years older. Here comes this usurper. He's had mom and dad all to himself. This is what every older sibling goes through. They've had mom and dad all to themselves, and now they have to share them with this demanding infant that makes lots of noise and gets to play with all the things that you used to play with. And that's why you see a lot of regression. And I wonder how much regression was allowed for Cain. As you know, children of earlier generations had more work to do, right? So I'm sure that Cain, as soon as he's able to toddle, is out there helping mom and dad. And then comes along baby, and baby doesn't have to do anything. Now, it doesn't make any sense that a baby, it makes sense that a baby can't do anything. It doesn't make sense that, Cain resents him for it, except from the fact that here I am having to put up with all this stuff from this baby, and I still have to do stuff for mom and dad. It's so sibling rivalry. We all do it. Now, whether you're an oldest child or a youngest child, you're going to go through this. The youngest child isn't going to have the rivalry with a younger one. They have the older one to contend with. They get to do everything. You get to do nothing. And it's always because wait till you're older. So then we have this competition. Who can behave more older? It's really so typical. But then we look at it, and let's look at the offerings. Okay. It says that Abel brought portions of some of the firstborn of his flock. So he's giving the first to his God. It's like the tithe that we're expected to give. You give it first and count on God to fill up the rest of it. And that's what he's doing with his sheep. He's giving God the firstborn sheep. He's not waiting until he's got all of them born to figure out which ones to give God. He gives him the very first ones. Cain said that he brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering. And it sounds kind of like when you say fruits of the soil, you think about it. If you're collecting fruit, and let's just take the word literally, fruit. If it's on the ground, it's probably not the first of the fruits. And I think even if it were the things that you harvest from the earth, it doesn't say that Cain brought the first fruits, the first of them. He just brought something from the ground. So it is written in a way to imply that Cain is not giving the best and the first, and counting on God to fill in the rest. He gave of them, but not the first. Kind of more like, okay, one for me, two for me, one for God, 3 for me, 4 for me, another one for God, one more, 2 more, one for, and not looking at just saying, okay, you get the first basket of fruit because I'm going to trust God to fill in the rest. And that is why, when you look at it, the Lord says to Cain, why are you angry? Why is it, if you do right, will you not be accepted? It's always been kind of you to truly show trust. I'll be able to get that out soon. Truly show trust in God means giving him that first bit. That you trust that once I have given you what you need and what you deserve, God, then you're going to help make sure that everything else works out. And Cain is showing a distinct lack of trust in his God. And so, and that again might be some of that sibling rivalry. He's still concerned about getting enough for himself. He's taken sibling rivalry beyond the good type of sibling rivalry where we learn how to communicate, and gone beyond that and has become concerned solely about himself. The idea that the pie only has so much. God only has so much love. Mom and dad only have so much love. It's pie. And if I get a smaller piece, then someone else is getting a bigger piece. And if someone else gets a bigger piece, even bigger, then mine gets smaller. Instead of accepting that God's love is infinite and able to consume you entirely, he only sees it as a sliver. And this again comes out of his sibling rivalry of thinking, my parents only have so much time to give, and he perceives himself as not receiving enough. So there's a lot of where Cain is coming from. And you think about even his words. He goes, am I my brother's keeper? And I looked that up, and the word keeper is from the verb shamar, which means guard or keeping, watch, preserving. And when he says that, am I my brother's keeper? I wondered how many times growing up he had heard, look after your little brother. Take him out to the field, take him out to the flocks, look after your little brother. Oh, how long and how much and how often did he want to just leave him at home because he was going to mess things up or break things, or he'd get the attention for being out in the field, or because he was so much younger. Sibling rivalry is so tough because a little bit of it is good. Like we said, it can teach a lot of lessons. But when we forget that love is not pie, that there's only so much, we end up murdering somebody. Now, maybe not literally, like Cain. Cain picks up a rock, I'm assuming it's something like that, whacks him in the head, attacks him somehow. I'm assuming a rock was easy, that's why we're out in the field. Whack him, bury him. I don't know where he went. But we all do that in other ways. We are worried that if the poor get more food, there's going to be less food for me, or it's going to cost more for me. And so I'm going to stop that. And in that case, you can do actually some literal murder, but in the other case, it's really an emotional murder, or a mental murder, because your concern is for yourself, and you're cutting off a need of someone else. In this case, literal food. Maybe it's schooling. I'm not going to help support that school because my kids are done with school. I've done my part. And we're murdering the young minds of children. Okay? We're discounting those minds and not allowing them the education that they need to succeed in this world, to become part of this world. It's, again, a type of murder. How much of that do we do because we're in a sibling rivalry with every other person on this planet in some way? We can use that good sibling rivalry to learn how to negotiate. Maybe boost our social skills a little bit, interacting with someone who's totally different than us. Different social class, different racial group, different nationalities. Sibling rivalry, let's use it for good this time. Let's not use it as the older sibling who's being deprived of a parent's total devotion. We don't have to worry about that. If we truly believe that God is God, let him out of his box. And if God is God, God's love is infinite. We don't have to worry about our piece of the pie being smaller. We just have to trust him. Big problem there, trust. We would rather keep it to ourselves, like Cain did, not giving the best that we can give, because we want to make sure that we have what we need, not trusting God, not trusting the world or society to help us out. Probably a good thing these days that we're not trusting society. But I would like to see us become that kind of society. That we go, okay, you are my brother, you are my sister in Christ, and I am willing to give my best to Christ. Well, that means, okay, I got to help out with this. My job is to make sure that other people are fed or are educated or clothed, that we visit those in prison, the sick, that we reach out beyond our sibling rivalry, having learned how to use the sibling rivalry to boost our social skills, improve our complex language, problem solving, and embrace that other child of Christ. Scary, huh? But that's Cain and Abel. Absolutely ordinary people acting just the way we do still today. I hope that you will join us next week as we move on through the book of Genesis. And I hope that you find this as interesting as I do. Please feel free to leave comments and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of time with me, and see you next week.